Hey everyone, I've got one for you guys today. Oh, this movie kind of takes me back. It's a special kind of bad movie, one that you just watch completely enthralled by what's in front of you, even if none of it makes sense and none of it should. It just is a hypnotic kind of bad. I've seen this movie multiple times now. This is one of the kind of bad movies you show other people. I've probably now seen this movie more than most people have. Because most people wouldn't rewatch Malefic. Most people haven't heard of Malefic. I would like to change that. I think more people should see Malefic. But, getting ahead of myself. Now, every so often I'd go on my movie buying binges. I've got a lot of movies. I own many movies. So, sometimes I don't know quite what I'm looking for. And sometimes just for a lark or in its way of holding myself back, I'll ask my partner to, hey, look through here, find me some movies. You know what I like. Sometimes she'll find me movies that I legitimately am looking for, and sometimes she'll find movies that she knows are going to be bad movies, but, well, she knows I also have a fondness for them as well. And such was the case with Malefic. While going through a used pawn shop, she happened upon it, and you've got to see this. And she brought this one over to me. Turned it over, and with how amateurish it looked, it was almost hypnotic. Remember those goth kids you knew back in high school? Look, they made a movie. If you were one of those goth kids back in high school, I clearly don't mean you. I mean one of those other ones. The ones you didn't like. Now, this movie is a work of art. In that I'm pretty sure someone made it for their high school art class. I don't even know where to start going over this film. Okay, so first off, some technical aspects before I get into the meat of it. The movie is a very short 74 minutes, 70 minutes if you take out the credits, and the whole thing is in black and white. Because artsy. Or possibly to hide how bad some of the effects are. But I digress. One other thing that always caught me as strange is just the packaging. Now, you got our main characters right here on the back. And you have a list of names right up here on top. Now, those names are not them. One of them might be. I think one of them is. But the other ones are characters that are either killed in the first scene or have a one-scene appearance. Also, the writer-director gives himself a small role also, which, yeah. So, yeah, one of the ones on the cover is on the back, but the others, no. They get this little blurb over here, this tiny little thing on the side that says starring them. Okay, enough with the pauses. What is this movie about? Demons, sort of? Okay, so a group of 4 criminals, their crime, that's a whole other topic. We'll get to that. Are using this cabin in the woods to make their ransom exchange. So essentially, they're hiding out there until they can arrange for their ransom. And this cabin belonged to an occultist who studied talking boards. They don't say Ouija boards in it, or spirit board, but they go with talking board. I guess Hasbro still owns the copyright on Ouija. But anyway, and apparently they discover that according to him, if you use one of these talking boards, you're not contacting the dead, you're contacting entities from what he calls the underside, which try to keep you using the board as long as possible in order to find a way into our world. And then they become some sort of pseudo-Lovecraftian monsters sneaking through our dimension, like kind of pictured up here. Okay, that's fine. Basic, but okay. And of course they fool around with it for a little bit, just a really tiny bit, and that, I guess, is enough for monsters to come through and begin slaughtering them. The monsters look like they're made of paper mache, but hey. Anyway, they get to what makes this movie a little jaw-droppingly strange. You find out about... We have an opening scene first with it's just a couple getting killed in a nearby cabin. That's referenced briefly later, just to kind of set the mood. It's pretty standard. Then after that, we get a kind of a voiceover narration from one of our goth kids, Lacey, who informs us, because she's a dominatrix, that one of her clients owns this cabin, and makes a perfect post for their ransom. Yeah, she just casually mentioned she's a dominatrix in this crawl. It has nothing to do with the plot otherwise, and never comes up again. But just drops in there. And her narration does take up a good chunk of time, except for the delivery is amazing. She talks about it like this. So, I'm a dominatrix, so my client gave me the information, and if there's anything, it was the four of us, though Gage shouldn't have been there. If there's anything I feel bad about, it's when things went wrong, that Gage was involved. It's this weird, stereotypical goth girl voice. It's just strange, and the line delivery is very flat. That's another thing. All the characters are so unemotive. They react to nothing. They just see something strange and just either have a completely neutral facial expression or back away slowly. My partner referenced one girl seeing a eldritch monster crawling across the floor with all the surprise of seeing a roach, just step back and, oh. And when someone is already dead and is approaching someone else with a knife intent to kill, I think that's an knife, she might have been trying to strangle, I don't remember. Their only reaction is just... No one ever hurries. No one ever has any distress in their voice. It's always just, oh. Makes it unintentionally funny, but it makes the characters very hard to relate to. Not that you really want to, because they're all terrible people, but... Anyway. Like I said, so they're there because they're ransoming. Now, as for what they're ransoming... Okay, so there's a man, Mr. Spudik, who I don't know, he's someone prominent. I think he's a rich senator or important businessman or lawyer. I'm not entirely certain who he is, but he's someone rich and important. That's all you really need to know. He's played by the director. But they call him up while he's busy having an affair to begin their ransom. Now, what they're ransoming is his daughter. 8-month-old daughter. Which his response to being told that he was ransoming is, "My daughter's dead." To which our ransomers reply, "Nevertheless..." Yes, they are ransoming the corpse of his 8-month-old daughter, who, they imply, Well, she officially died from sudden infant death syndrome, but they imply that he had something to do with her death, so any police involvement would be less likely because he could be implicated as her remains are taken into evidence. Yeah, that's what they're answering. So that's what our heroes are like, and so they're not very likable. And then you got Mr. Spudik, who's already cheating on his wife, who, when he finds out she now has overheard this, kills her. So no one in this movie is relatable, likable, or a winner. The only real selling point that they have is we see pretty much all of the ladies naked at some point. To the ladies and then to the people who are hoping to see the men, also, unfortunately, this movie does not do anything for you. However, all the girls do seem to parade around completely naked for a larger than you'd expect portion of this film. That's the highlight, I guess? It's only one of the few selling points the movie has. Take it or leave it. But, yes, so, however, before they can make their drop, eldritch monsters start appearing and killing them. Starting with one girl who dies in the bathtub, of course. And then her animated, naked corpse begins moving around and causes the death of another one. And these are all reacting to the death of their friends as if they just went out, then are just happened to leave for the night. Like, oh, they're gone now. They don't emote. Nothing. And pretty much only one of them manages to get out and make the exchange, and now the baby might be back as an undead. That's pretty much the movie. That's it. Spoiled the whole thing for you. But nonetheless, I do recommend seeing this movie just because it is fascinating. For the delivery, the effects, the characters, it fails on almost every level, but hypnotically so. I will say this movie has some ideas. It just doesn't flesh any of them out. Less so than Cyclops even did. Cyclops at least tried to explain a little bit more. This one gives maybe one character reads a diary for a little bit just to give some epilogue, but none of it goes anywhere. They talk about a witch that has nothing to do with anything. They reference the scientist who barely has anything to do with anything. If the movie took another like half hour to establish some of this, it could have done something. But it's just such a quick in and out, it doesn't. It's a one MacGuffin movie, but it's one that I do recommend seeing nonetheless. The one thing the movie does well is some creepy dream sequences. When the characters are sleeping in the house, there is some creepy imagery in these sequences, and that's really where it kind of stands out between a carriage full of maggots and mealworms to a monster-faced nun. They do some creepy things. But that's it. There's no scares otherwise, and the effects are so bad. The gore effects are pretty much non-existent except for one corpse, and then it goes so quickly you can barely see it. And the monster effects are, like I said, are laughable. The movie even pads itself out with a chase scene that's just back and forth and goes absolutely nowhere. With the guy barely hustling. Because he doesn't care. No one cares. But I care. So I watched this movie. More than I should. I show it to more people than I should. Take a look if you can find it. It's not an easy to find movie, but if you stumble across it, give it a chance. It's something. It's Malefic.